My wife once told me she loved how calm I was under pressure. She didn't know that same calmness would one day destroy her. The night she texted, "James is staying over after training," she thought I'd lose control. Instead I smiled, because I already had the proof, the footage, and a plan that would quietly erase her life piece by piece. No shouting. No drama. Just poetic justice. Viewers, what's worse, being cheated on or watching the person who betrayed you realize they chose the wrong one? Subscribe, like, comment and watch till the ending to share this interesting story. My name is Kelvin Adewale, 36 years old, a network engineer living in Lekki, Lagos. Most days my job is simple. I keep systems connected. I make sure people's lives run smoothly behind the screens they never think about. Funny thing though, I couldn't keep my own connection alive. It was a Thursday night, one of those Lagos evenings when the power had just come back after an outage, and the air smelled faintly of rain and hot transformer wires. The apartment felt too big for one person. The ceiling fan hummed lazily as I sat at the dining table, finishing the last spoon of jollof rice that had long gone cold. My laptop blinked at me from across the room, full of pending code reviews I didn't want to look at. Tola's absence didn't bother me anymore, or at least that's what I told myself. She said she was out with her colleagues celebrating a project milestone. I'd stopped keeping track of those. The wine glasses we bought on our honeymoon still sat in the cupboard, untouched for months. Then my phone buzzed. Just once. I almost ignored it. Probably work, maybe my younger brother asking for airtime again. But something in me glanced anyway. "James is staying over tonight after training." No emojis. No accident. Just clean, deliberate words. I stared at them for a moment, feeling my pulse slow instead of quicken. The air around me thickened as if the room itself was holding its breath. My thumb hovered over the screen. For 5 whole seconds I didn't think of James, whoever he was. I thought about the day Tola and I moved into this apartment, how she danced barefoot across the tiled floor, claiming the kitchen as hers, how she'd said, "Promise me we'll never become strangers in this house." And now here we were, strangers sharing nothing but rent and memories. I didn't rage. I didn't throw the phone or call her. I simply typed, "Enjoy ma." Then I placed the phone face down on the table, stood up and walked to the window. From 11 floors up, Lagos shimmered, restless cars, neon lights, 1,000 stories colliding in heat and ambition. Somewhere out there she was probably reading my reply. Maybe she expected jealousy, an argument, or a desperate call. But she got silence. That was the first move. My reflection in the glass looked foreign, calm eyes, tight jaw, no trace of panic. Years ago, when I worked freelance in digital forensics, I'd learned that emotional reactions ruin evidence. The first rule of any investigation was simple: observe before you act. That night I opened my laptop, but not for work. I created a new folder and named it Home. Inside it, I began a quiet plan, one built on patience, not anger. Behind me the phone buzzed again, but I didn't turn around. Instead, I whispered to my reflection, "If she's brave enough to lie in my house, I'll be brave enough to watch her do it." Outside, thunder rolled across the lagoon. It was going to rain, the kind of rain that scrubs the city clean. I smiled faintly, closed the curtains and turned off the lights. Tomorrow would begin the investigation of my own marriage. 2 weeks before that message, before the silence and the smirk in the glass, I had already started losing her in fragments. Not all at once. Just little pieces, the way her laughter began to sound practiced, how her perfume lasted longer than her hugs, how her phone stayed face down even when she was alone. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Every marriage hits a plateau, right? People grow, habits change, and love becomes quieter. That's what I thought. The first real sign came one Sunday morning. I was frying plantain while she was getting ready for church. She walked past me in a floral dress I hadn't seen before, something short with open shoulders. I remember saying, "You look nice." She didn't even glance up from the mirror. "Thanks. I'm meeting the choir team early. Don't wait for me after service." The oil hissed, popping like it wanted to interrupt us. "You joined the choir?" I asked. She said, sliding lip gloss on. Needed something to do. I didn't argue. But I knew Tola. She wasn't a choir person. She didn't like long meetings or rehearsals. That day she came home smelling like men's cologne and cheap red wine. We had dinner in silence. She scrolled through her phone, pretending to laugh at something. The screen flashed a name for half a second, James, gym trainer. When I asked who that was, she smiled too quickly. Just someone helping me stay in shape. Her phone buzzed again that night while she was in the shower. I looked at it. I didn't open it, not yet. The message preview was enough. Don't forget, same time tomorrow. I wish I could say I was heartbroken. I wasn't. I was curious. You see, before all this, I wasn't always a network engineer for a private firm. Years ago, when I was freelancing, I'd done work for law enforcement, tracing scammers, recovering deleted evidence, digital footprints. I'd seen how people lie online, how they slip, how their guilt leaves shadows in the data. That night, lying beside her, watching her sleep, I wondered if she even noticed how distant she'd become, how her body turned slightly away like instinct. I wondered what story she was building in her head about me, maybe that I was boring, predictable, too focused on work. But the truth? I'd built this life for her. The steady income, the apartment in Lekki, the new car she drove to work. Everything was a thank you for believing in me when I had nothing. Flashback. 5 years ago, she was the loud girl from the university's mass communication department who kept pestering me to fix the campus Wi-Fi. I was the quiet tech guy eating noodles in my hostel room. She said my silence made her curious. She said she loved how my eyes didn't wander like other guys. She was my first real love. The kind that made you want to do better. But in hindsight, maybe that was the problem. I was too busy doing better to notice she'd stopped wanting me. 2 weeks before the text, I stood in that same kitchen. She was on her phone, smiling faintly, typing fast. She didn't know I could see the reflection in the microwave door. The name flashed again, James. That was the moment I realized something deeper. The woman I married wasn't cheating out of boredom. She was cheating because she thought she could get away with it. And that thought stayed with me, cold, sharp, patient, until the night she sent that message. The night after that message, I sat alone in my small home office, a tight space filled with glowing monitors, scattered flash drives, and a shelf full of half-finished gadgets. The steady hum of my desktop fan was the only sound. Most people would have confronted their spouse immediately, demanded answers, shouted, cried, anything to release the pressure. But not me. I'd spent too many years watching liars trip over their own words. In my freelance days, I'd been called the digital ghost. I could find deleted texts, hidden folders, and GPS logs people thought were gone forever. I had helped companies trace insider leaks and even assisted the police once on a fraud case. Those skills had bought me this apartment. Ironically, they were now the same tools I'd used to expose the woman sleeping down the hall. I still remember the first case I ever cracked. A husband swore his wife was innocent. He cried in my office, begged me to prove she wasn't cheating. I found her messages within hours. When I told him, he didn't yell or curse. He just stared at the screen and said, "So this is what truth looks like." I never forgot that line. That's exactly how I felt now, like I was about to meet the truth face to face. I waited until Tola left for work the next morning. She was humming as she applied her lipstick, pretending nothing was wrong. The moment the front door closed, I powered up my system and retrieved her old phone, the one she'd stopped using 2 months ago when she said it was acting up. I plugged it into my computer and opened my recovery software. The progress bar crawled across the screen, slow and deliberate. My pulse matched its rhythm. Within minutes, messages began to appear, fragments first, then full conversations. The name James popped up repeatedly. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to keep reading. "James, I'll bring wine tonight. Same place? Tola, make sure he's asleep early. I'll leave the side door open." I scrolled further. Photos. Deleted images that had been renamed in her gallery, nothing explicit, just smiles, inside jokes, hints of intimacy that said everything words couldn't. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen until the lines blurred. Anger wasn't what I felt. It was detachment, like watching a movie I already knew the ending to. Still, I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I needed context. Proof of pattern, not accident. One careless text could be dismissed as a misunderstanding. A chain of messages told a story. So, I began collecting evidence. Timestamps, screenshots, metadata. Every detail stored neatly in a new folder on my desktop named Truth. At one point, I caught my reflection in the dark monitor. Eyes hollow, expression unreadable. I thought about the first computer I ever built in my parents' living room, how proud Tola had been. She called me my genius. Now that genius was working against her. By the time the scan finished, it was evening. Outside, traffic roared, horns, shouts, the chaos of the city going about its night. Inside, I sat still, surrounded by glowing screens and quiet betrayal. The truth was no longer hidden. But exposing it, that required something more than skill. It required control. I closed the folder, powered down the monitor, and whispered to the darkness, "Tomorrow we begin the experiment. Please subscribe." The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The air was heavy with humidity, the kind that sticks to your skin even when you're still. I stood by the window, watching the faint orange light stretch over Lecky's skyline. I didn't feel like a husband anymore. I felt like an investigator revisiting an old case, except this time the crime scene was my own home. Tola was still asleep, curled on her side, her phone gripped loosely in her hand. For a moment I studied her face, peaceful, innocent, the same face I fell in love with at 26. I used to find comfort there. Now all I could see were questions I didn't want answers to. When she finally left for work, I started preparing. My office drawer still held some of my old freelance gear, small motion-triggered cameras, wireless transmitters, and a USB bug the size of a fingernail. I used to install these for corporate clients. Now I was using them to protect what was left of my dignity. I began with the living room. The first camera went inside the flower vase by the TV, a perfect view of the couch and the front door. Another went behind the bookshelf facing the hallway. I placed one in the kitchen, inside an Old Spice jar. Each one connected silently to my laptop, feeding into a private, encrypted drive. It felt wrong at first, invasive, paranoid, but so did being lied to. As I worked, memories drifted through my mind. I remembered the day she told me she hated lies more than anything. She was crying that day, shaking as she told me how her father cheated on her mother. "I can forgive anything but dishonesty," she'd said. I believed her. I built our life around that belief. Now I was seeing how easy it is to inherit what we hate. By noon, everything was in place. I tested each camera. Crisp feed. Perfect angles. No blind spots. I sat back watching our living room through the screen, the same room where we'd shared movie nights, arguments and laughter. It looked unfamiliar now, colder, as if it belonged to someone else. When Tola returned that evening, I acted normal. I asked about her day. She told me her team meeting ran long. Her voice didn't shake. Her lies had rhythm now, clean, practiced. I smiled, nodded, and offered her dinner. She thanked me absent-mindedly, scrolling through her phone. For a split second, I saw her reflection in the TV screen, the faintest smirk as she texted someone. My chest tightened, but I said nothing. I'd get the truth soon enough. That night, after she fell asleep, I slipped quietly into my office. The cameras had captured everything, her pacing around the living room in a red dress, checking the clock, texting nervously. Then she stood by the door, whispering something I couldn't hear. The timestamp read 8:57 p.m. She looked terrified, then relieved. And then the screen cut to black. The power had gone out at that exact moment. Lagos and its timing. Still I had enough. She wasn't innocent. She was preparing for something, or someone. As I stared at the frozen frame of her face on the screen, a strange calm washed over me. I wasn't chasing anger anymore. I was chasing clarity. "Let's see how far she's willing to go," I whispered. The next step wasn't to confront her. It was to make her think she'd gotten away with it. That's how you learn what someone's true nature really is, when they believe no one's watching. It happened 3 nights later. By then I had learned her patterns. The long showers before 8 p.m., the sudden bursts of energy when she was usually tired, the way she hummed as she cooked small portions of food that she never actually ate. Every routine had a new rhythm, every rhythm pointed toward something, someone. That night, I told her I'd be working late at the firm. I even packed my laptop bag to make it believable. She didn't ask where exactly I'd be. She just smiled faintly, that polite kind of smile you give to a stranger in an elevator. I left the house around 7:30, walked to the parking lot and got into my car. Instead of driving to the office, I drove 3 blocks away to my friend Emika's apartment. He was a civil engineer, loud, messy, and trustworthy enough to not ask too many questions. When I arrived, he was in the middle of a FIFA match, beer in hand. "Guy, you finally socialize?" he joked, grinning. "Just need your TV on loud," I said, setting my laptop on his table. "I'll explain later." He shrugged. "No wahala. You want drink?" "Not tonight." I logged into my home feed, the cameras flickering to life one by one. The living room came into focus. Dim lighting, the curtains drawn, our wedding photo glinting faintly in the background. Tola appeared on screen, pacing. She was dressed in that same red dress I'd seen before, the one that always meant she wanted attention. She kept checking her phone, glancing at the clock. At 8:03 the front door opened. A man stepped inside, tall, athletic, casual in a black t-shirt. He carried a bottle of wine, smiling like he belonged there. I leaned closer to the screen. Tola's voice, soft but nervous. "You made it." "Of course. You sure he's not around?" Tola laughing lightly. "He's too busy fixing everyone's internet but mine." Emika looked at me frowning. Bro, that your wife? I didn't answer. I couldn't. The camera followed them as they sat on the couch. She poured wine into glasses, our wedding gift set. They clinked glasses and whispered. She leaned closer, resting her head briefly on his shoulder. It wasn't the touch that hurt, it was the ease of it. The comfort. Like they'd done it 100 times before. My fingers tightened around the mouse until my knuckles went white. I wasn't angry yet. I was numb. Watching it felt surreal, like I was outside my own life, trapped behind a screen. Then she said something that cut deeper than anything else. Sometimes I wish I'd met you first. The room around me went silent, even Emika's game paused. I stared at her face on the monitor, her eyes sparkling in that dim light. The woman I thought I knew was gone. In her place was someone bold enough to rewrite our history with another man. I closed the laptop slowly. That's all I needed. Emika shifted, unsure what to say. What you go do now? Nothing yet, I said quietly. Not until she believes she's safe. Because that's the thing about betrayal, people get sloppy when they think you've stopped watching. I left Emika's apartment without another word. Outside, the night air was heavy, thick with the smell of rain and diesel fumes. I looked up at the sky, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down. In a strange way, I wasn't broken. I was becoming something else. Focused, cold, purposeful. By the time I reached my car, I'd already decided. This wouldn't end with shouting or tears. It would end with precision. She'd handed me a performance. Now it was time for me to direct the final act. Please subscribe as you enjoy the story. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at my desk, the blue glow of my monitor cutting through the darkness. Every image I'd seen replayed in my mind, her smile, his hand brushing hers, that line, "Sometimes I wish I'd met you first." Most people think revenge starts with anger. It doesn't. It starts with silence. The kind that lets you hear your own heartbeat and every word that ever lied to you. I opened the folder named Truth and began to organize everything. Screenshots, timestamps, photos, chat logs, camera footage, all of it. It wasn't just evidence anymore, it was a map of my disillusionment. Somewhere between labeling files, I remembered the day I proposed to Tola. We were standing by the lagoon, the sunset bleeding orange across the water. I'd promised her that I'd always protect her heart. The irony made me laugh out loud, the first real laugh in days, cold and bitter. Around midnight, I started drafting emails. Not to her. Not yet. To her boss. Her company had strict rules about personal conduct, especially after a scandal the year before. I didn't plan to destroy her. Not immediately. I just wanted to remove the safety net that let her believe she was untouchable. I attached select evidence. Nothing explicit, just enough to raise questions. The kind that eat away at professional reputations like termites in old wood. Then I scheduled the email to send in the morning. Before closing my laptop, I looked at her contact name in my phone, Tola Red Hearts. I edited it, deleting the heart. Just Tola. Simple. Neutral. Accurate. When I crawled into bed beside her, she stirred slightly, murmuring something in her sleep. Her hand brushed mine. For a second, instinct made me want to hold it. Then I remembered the wine glasses clinking on my screen. I pulled my hand away. The next morning, I made breakfast like nothing happened. Plantain, eggs, a little pepper sauce, her favorite. She smiled, kissed my cheek and said, "You're too good to me." I watched her walk out the door, her heels clicking down the hallway, and whispered, "Not anymore." The email went out at exactly 9 a.m. By noon, my phone started buzzing. Not hers, mine. First Emika called, then one of Tola's friends. I ignored them all. I didn't need to hear the chaos to know it had begun. At 12:47, the office camera showed up on my feed. Tola sitting across from her boss, a middle-aged woman known for her zero-tolerance policy. The woman's expression was stone. Tola's face pale and tight. I zoomed in on the video clip I'd sent. Her laughter with James, the wine, the way she whispered, "He's too busy fixing everyone's internet but mine." Every word, every movement, there for her boss to see. My phone buzzed again, this time her message. "Kelvin, what have you done?" I didn't reply. At 1:12 p.m. she called. I let it ring. At 1:14 again. I let it ring. At 1:16 a third time voicemail. Then a text came through. "Please let's talk. It's not what it looks like." I laughed quietly. I'd used that same line years ago during a misunderstanding at work. It's the universal code for, I'm guilty but not ready to admit it. By 4 p.m. she was home. I watched her on the cameras, pacing, slamming doors, dialing her phone, muttering to herself. She didn't know I could see her. She didn't know I was sitting just a few blocks away, sipping bitter coffee and watching everything unfold like a director reviewing a final cut. Around 6 p.m. she finally left again, probably to look for me. That's when I went home. I deleted the camera feeds, wiped the drives clean and packed a few clothes. The house felt smaller than ever. Empty, yet loud with the echo of what used to be us. When she returned later that night, she found me sitting calmly on the couch, suitcase by my side. Her eyes were red. "They suspended me," she said, voice trembling. "I know. You sent them those videos?" "I sent them the truth." She dropped her purse, crying now. "Why, Kelvin? You could have just talked to me." I looked up at her, really looked at her. The same woman who once swore she'd never lie to me. The same woman who laughed in my living room with another man. "Because talking stopped working the day you chose to lie," I said. Then I stood, lifted my suitcase and walked to the door. Her voice cracked behind me. "You're ending this? Just like that?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm ending the illusion." She showed up at my office the next day, drenched in rain, makeup running, hair clinging to her face. My colleagues stared as she stormed through the door. I stood from my desk, signaling for them to give us privacy. Inside the small meeting room, she slammed the door shut. "You ruined my life," she shouted. "No, Tola," I said evenly. "You ruined mine. I just documented it." Her breathing was ragged. "You don't understand, Kelvin. It wasn't supposed to go that far. He was just a distraction?" I interrupted. "Or a replacement?" Tears welled up, but I felt nothing. I just handed her a small flash drive. "That's everything. The footage, the texts, the chats. You can keep it. I don't need it anymore." She hesitated before taking it. "You planned this, didn't you?" "No. I prepared for it." That's when something shifted in her expression. Fear. Not because I yelled, but because I didn't. She realized she couldn't control the narrative anymore. I wasn't playing defense. I was already gone. I turned to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. For the first time in days, my body froze. I looked at her, eyes narrowing. "You expect me to believe that?" She shook her head, sobbing. "It's yours. I swear it's yours." I didn't answer. I just pulled my hand free, opened the door and walked out. Her voice followed me down the hallway, half crying, half screaming, but it faded under the hum of office chatter. That evening, I sat in my car for an hour, watching the rain blur the windshield. I didn't know whether she was lying or not. But I knew one thing: I couldn't be her fool anymore. Please subscribe as you enjoy the story. A week later, the apartment was quiet. My clothes were packed. My name was off the rent. The only thing left behind was the wedding photo, face down on the dining table. Tola's messages came daily. Apologies, please, even threats. I never responded. Emeka said I should forgive her, that people make mistakes. Maybe he was right. But forgiveness isn't always about letting the other person off the hook. Sometimes it's about not letting them pull you back into the fire. Her job officially terminated her on Friday. The HR email leaked and soon everyone in her office knew. As for James, he disappeared. Blocked her, left the gym, vanished like smoke. That weekend, I got one last message from her. "I lost the baby." No greeting. No explanation. Just those words. I didn't know if it was true. I didn't ask. Some truths aren't meant to be verified, they're meant to be released. That night, I walked through the empty apartment one last time. The rooms echoed with memories, laughter, fights, Sunday breakfasts, all of it blending into a dull hum of what used to be love. I locked the door behind me and walked out without looking back. It's been 3 months since I left. I rented a smaller place near the coast, quiet, clean, no ghosts. I still wake up sometimes expecting to hear her voice, to smell her perfume lingering on the sheets. Then I remember, peace smells like nothing. Sometimes people ask why I didn't take her back. Why I didn't fight for what we built. The truth? You can't rebuild something that was never real to the other person. One evening, I sat at a seaside cafe watching the waves hit the rocks. The air was soft, golden light spilling across the water. I pulled out my phone and opened a blank note. At the top I typed, "Lessons from betrayal. Trust, once broken, doesn't shatter, it corrodes. Slowly, quietly. Silence reveals more than shouting ever could. Some people only regret getting caught, not what they did. Healing isn't forgiveness. It's release." I closed the note and ordered coffee. The waitress smiled at me, not flirtatious, just kind. I smiled back for the first time in months. As I sipped, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I hesitated, then checked the message. "You think you've won, Kelvin?" No name. No number saved. But I didn't need one. I already knew who it was. I stared at the screen for a moment, then smiled faintly and typed one word back. Peace. I set the phone face down, watching the sunset burn itself into the horizon. Sometimes revenge isn't destruction, it's disappearance. And as the tide swallowed the sun, I realized I hadn't lost anything worth keeping. Still, deep down, a part of me wondered, what if that message wasn't from her? Fade to black. Subscribe, like, comment, and share for interesting stories.